Psychological research confirms that from birth, human beings have an intense need to belong, to connect with others in enduring close relationships. Clearly, children's attachment to their caregivers promotes their survival and well-being. When adults are asked what is necessary for their happiness, the most common answer is satisfying close relationships with family, friends, and romantic partners. People spend much time thinking about actual and hoped-for relationships. When people are ignored, excluded, or rejected, negative emotions can be overwhelming. Dr. Kipling Williams and his colleagues at the University of New South Wales have been studying the phenomenon of ostracism. It affects both those who use and receive this interpersonal strategy.
Ostracism is the act of excluding and ignoring an individual or a group by an individual or a group. And it has a lot of names. Sometimes it's called shunning, exile, banishment. Those would be cases where you're physically removed from other people. But sometimes you're in the presence of other people, in which case you might call it the silent treatment, getting the cold shoulder. In England and in Australia, they call it being sent to Coventry. The Amish community call it Maidung, where they ostracize somebody from within their group when they violated some norm.
Ostracism threatens 4 fundamental human needs. The need to belong. Human beings need to feel connected to others. Obviously, ostracism undermines this feeling of belonging. Sense of control. People need to feel in control of their lives. Even in conflict, people can exercise some control as long as they can argue their point of view. When ostracized, they lose that sense of control. Self-esteem. Human beings need to value and respect themselves. Ostracism produces a feeling that an individual has done something wrong, or that there is something about a person that is different or bad. Sense of meaningful existence. People need to feel that their existence has purpose. Ostracism takes away that sense of purpose and gives a person a look at what life would be like if they didn't exist.
Ostracism is a metaphor for death. This is what life would be like if you didn't exist. And so you feel yourself as though you're invisible and not there and totally meaningless. I was at a park one day with my dog, and I was just minding my own business, and suddenly a frisbee knocked against my back, and I looked up and I saw 2 guys that were playing with the frisbee, and I tossed it back to them. And to my surprise, they tossed it back to me. And I felt kind of good for a moment and thought, well, this is fun. And I got up and went and joined them, and we were tossing the frisbee amongst ourselves for about 3 or 4 tosses. And then suddenly they'd stop tossing it to me. And I'm standing there, and they're tossing it to each other, and they're having fun, and I'm feeling particularly awkward and strange and not knowing what to do, and I felt bad, and finally I sort of backtracked to my dog and licked my wounds. But I thought to myself, gee, that's a really powerful and effective way to produce this feeling of ostracism that I could possibly do in the laboratory.
In Williams' experiment, 1 subject and 2 Confederates are instructed to wait quietly in a small room for the experimenter to return.
It was like for learning experiment or like teaching how people learn or something like that. But it was so bizarre because the people weren't actually shocking anybody. Like the people, they were like behind some kind of glass thing, and they were just acting like they were being shocked, but they weren't being shocked. But the people.
One of the Confederates discovers a ball and begins tossing it.
Wow, it was bizarre. It was like, and they would keep on increasing the strength of the shock, and it was like, they increased the strength of the shock, and they thought they were hurting this person, but they weren't.
Eventually, The Confederates stopped throwing to the subject. In this reenactment, the subject clearly shows signs of stress as the ball tossing goes on without her.
I don't know, I thought it was really weird. It was bizarre, I can't imagine. Can you imagine shocking someone? Yeah, it was weird. I thought it was funny.
So I guess we're supposed to talk about these questions. So this first one's about divorce and why we think the divorce rate's so high.
In a similar experiment, 2 Confederates and 1 subject seemingly comprise a discussion group. The reaction of the subject is easily observable as she discovers she's being left out of the conversation.
I don't know, it's kind of different. Maybe it's harder to meet people now than...
Did I see you by the Parliament the other day? Playing basketball.
Oh yeah, I'm over. I don't live there, but I live in Corbett, and I go. I know friends at Parmalee and stuff, so sometimes I go hang out. They have courts over there too.
I live in Parliament.
Oh yeah.
Food's terrible.
Really?
Yeah, it's bad. What kind of carpet? Yeah, mine's really bad. It's got like holes in it. Burns. Cigarette burns.
Yeah, the dorms. I don't know. They're not all that great. I can't wait to move off campus next year. That'll be nice. Have your own place, no one to kind of tell you what to do, and you know.
Yeah, I gotta find some people to find a place with because I can't deal with the dorm.
No, my roommate really is kind of a little bit weird. You felt that little thing that says your interests and things you like and stuff like that, and you figure they'd find someone who would kind of be normal based on what you do. But this person's just really weird. I don't even understand him.
Yeah, my roommate, when he's there, he just get the music blaring, and I put on my card. I wanted a quiet room, and I got this guy.
In a third experiment, Williams and his colleagues extended the ball tossing paradigm to cyberspace. In this environment, the subject tosses a virtual ball to 2 other people located elsewhere on the internet. When an individual stops receiving the ball, he or she begins to feel excluded and isolated, exactly as one would in a face-to-face situation. Cardiovascular measurements taken during this cyber ostracism experiment show that the subject experiences physiological arousal and stress response. These short-term effects are similar to those of people who've been ostracized over a long period of time and have major implications for both psychological and physical health.
There's several ways to respond in the middle stage to try to regain a sense of belonging and control and self-esteem, and some of them may be more functional than others. Sometimes you try to reestablish your sense of belonging by maybe conforming to the group a little bit more or being more pleasant to be around so that you're not going to be ostracized. But other times people respond to ostracism with frustration because they're not getting any response, and so they try to provoke a response, and they might say something or get in somebody's face, or if they still don't get a response, they might say very nasty things or maybe even shove them. And we have one case where the wife eventually, because she wasn't getting a response from the husband, picked up a marble ashtray and threw it at her husband's head. There are many times in our interviews with people who have had exposures to long-term ostracism where they initially reacted with aggression and violence. And so one way to reestablish a sense of control is to provoke and become violent so that you do control something.
Extreme reactions to ostracism may bring about tragedy in its most horrific form. In 1999, at Columbine High School in Colorado, 2 disgruntled students who felt extreme rejection killed 12 classmates, 1 teacher, and wounded 23 others before killing themselves.
As you know, once the person commits an awful act,
Young people are sometimes excluded, rejected, and even bullied by their classmates for perceived differences from their peers. Dr. Elliot Aronson of the University of California at Santa Cruz is the author of Nobody Left to Hate. He has devoted much of his career studying this phenomenon and trying to develop strategies and techniques to overcome it. One of Aronson's solutions is called the Jigsaw Classroom. In the Jigsaw Classroom, students work in groups. They must cooperate to finish a given assignment, in effect, learning from each other. Cooperation replaces competition as the motivation for achievement.
so the Jigsaw Classroom works particularly well in elementary schools for the simple reason that the kids are in the same room all the time. In junior high school and high school, they're changing classrooms. But we've done it in junior high schools and high schools, and it works beautifully there also. My feeling about the Jigsaw Classroom is this, especially if we look at it through the prism of Columbine and some of the other multiple school shootings where kids go over the edge from being taunted too much and take it out in extremely hostile ways, where there's an explosion of feelings. My feeling is if we started kids off in the Jigsaw Classroom in elementary school, by the time they got to junior high school and high school, we would only need an occasional booster shot, simply to remind them how terrific it is to cooperate with other people, even with other people who you were convinced you wouldn't like before. Because there's something quite beautiful about the process of cooperating. Because when you're cooperating, you really need to learn about the other person. The more you learn about people, the less you hate them. And before you know it, there's nobody left to hate.